So good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to introduce entrepreneur, public speaker, coach, media, and moderator Liz West. So welcome, Liz.
Hello.
So Liz, firstly, I would like to congratulate you on all your achievements. So can you please share with us how your entrepreneurial journey started?
Well, I think it always comes a little bit out of necessity and realizing that having, been in broadcast for so long that felt like I was ready for new challenges,
Yes.
and what could I do? How could I take the skills I had, challenge myself with new skills? And really that's what happened. I realized, I tried teaching for a little bit, and I sort of arrived at the place where I realized that being someone that could work with other people to help them be great presenters was really the most fulfilling for me at the time.
Yes, absolutely. So you've been backstage with celebrities, with the likes of Bono, and being live on the red carpet, interviewing politicians, and so many more. So can you share with our listeners how this came about and what were some of the best and most challenging interviews you have done?
That's interesting. Some of the best interviews. Well, that's always, I guess perspective, right?
Yes, of
What
course.
was it, that I had a great time? I honestly, I'm a nosy person by nature.
Yes,
So I really do enjoy asking questions because I'm curious.
yes,
I'm just, and if anybody were to meet me not working, they'd realize, this person asks a lot of questions. So I'm always really curious, and I really truly have enjoyed virtually every interview I've done because everybody's interesting, whether they're a celebrity or not. Ultimately,
yes,
there's some really cool stories to tell. People are doing really neat things.
yes.
So I would say the most challenging, though, was the Beastie Boys. I flew to New York to interview them, and they were like, it was like talking to three frat brothers, that
Yes.
were joking around and not answering my questions. And I remember sitting and thinking, I just want to get up and leave.
Yeah.
I want to get up and leave. However, it takes a lot. I'm not a quitter.
Yes.
So I thought, no, I'm just going to, hang in here, get my interview, and I'm leaving. But they were so, if I would tell them to their face, terrible behavior. I'm doing my job, just do your job.
Yes.
So that was
Exactly.
not the most fun.
Okay. So having anchored, produced and reported for 5 networks, including CTV and City TV, and won 2 Sun Reader's Choice Awards 2 years in a row, would you say this helped you open other doors within your career?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Being a public figure, it opens a lot of doors, fairly or unfairly. It's not something that I was ever chasing, that sort of recognizability. I just wanted to do the job. And in fact, when I started to do the job and was starting to be recognized, it used to drive me crazy. I would feel very, very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And then someone told me one day, you know what, Liz, you just have to realize that if someone is excited to see you, just, doesn't mean you're great. It just means they recognize you and they're excited to see you. Just don't ruin their excitement.
Yes.
Don't ruin it for them. And I learned, yep, you just smile, be gracious, be grateful, and, let them have the moment, because I've had those moments too when I've met people and I've
Yes.
gotten been very excited about it. So to answer your question, it does open doors, because when people they felt like they knew me,
Yeah.
even though I didn't know them.
Yes.
And we're definitely willing to help me if I needed help, or introductions, or sometimes I didn't need an introduction because people knew who I was before I had to introduce myself. So I have an unfair advantage, Karen.
Yes, of course. And do you have any examples of, opportunities that came about because of because of your awards and things? I mean, do you have any examples, specific examples?
Well, I mean, I had people from the community I live in ask me to run for city council.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I did that twice because they felt they were really, really, really dissatisfied with the current city councilor, and
Yes.
they knew, it's very hard to unseat an incumbent, and I'm very passionate about my community, and they knew that having being recognizable is an asset, especially in politics.
Yes.
So I did run for city council twice. I lost by, I think, 200 votes out
Okay.
of 18,000. So it was an experience. But it's
Yes.
like they say in horseshoes, close doesn't count.
Yeah.
Or it only counts in horseshoes. I think that's the saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what were some of your biggest lessons that you've learned within your career?
The biggest lessons I've learned, well, to be honest with you, I think that careers are as much about the relationships you make
Yes.
as they're as much about that as the work. So what I mean by that is, I'm very goal oriented. So I say I want to get to, that place, and I'm going to work to get there. And the process of getting there, I have met some wonderful people, people that I'm friends with till today. I even remember my first, the very first thing I did in television, because what I would do is I'd call producers and I'd say, I want to be in television, and they'd say, well, that's really nice. You need to get some experience. And I'd say,
And
okay.
how do you get experience if you're not working in the industry?
Exactly. You know what you do? You have to volunteer.
Yes.
You have to volunteer. I'm a big believer in volunteering. So I said, okay. And one producer of a morning show said, Liz, why don't you volunteer at the local cable company? And it sounded like a horrible idea to me because I just wanted to work for the morning show. But however, I respected his advice. And I think not only was he right, it's also a little bit of a test to see just how much do you want to do something? How far are you willing to go? And I think any business person or entrepreneur will think back to what have they done to get their own business. I mean, you do a lot. So I said, okay, I'm going to volunteer. And I pitched a show idea. It was a live variety show, a call-in show. I'd have a band, I'd have a co-host, I'd do all this stuff. And I pitched it to the cable company and they said, sure, why don't you do that? You don't get paid for it, of course. You do get experience. So I went in and I met other people that were volunteering and said, who wants to volunteer on my show? And I collected a co-host and a person who would handle production and a person that would also help me go out and do field pieces. And I'm telling you, within a couple of months, I realized that I loved these people. They were great. Yes. We had a great time. It was a great experience. And I'll never forget it because what I learned was it wasn't about, get that under my belt so I can move on. It was that this was an experience on its own, and that in many ways life is really about the journey, and Absolutely. I know that's right. It's the journey, not always the end goal or where you land. No. So it was fantastic, and I was really that has stuck with me. That was about, I want to think, how long ago was that? I feel like that was at least 20 years ago, and wow. I still remember that lesson because anytime I do something like running for city council, I made friends running for city, like new friends. It was an experience. I learned things. It was a journey that I'll never forget. And all those journeys really pay off in many, many ways.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even see it at the time. It's like it can come years later.
No. You're exactly right. It can be very hard to see at the time.
Absolutely. So you're dynamic and exude confidence, which is definitely a strong character trait, which is obviously needed as a reporter and anchor. When you were reporting any story, at any time that was challenging as a reporter or anchoring, not getting emotionally attached to a story, but also not coming across as cold either. So how did you strike the balance between both?
Sure. I was lucky. Well, okay, I've done I covered two types of subject matter. I covered entertainment for
Yes.
a long time, and that was really easy because I could have fun and do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
The challenge was when I wasn't impressed with someone or I wasn't a fan, or their record was not good, or their movie was awful. So I had, don't feel bad for me, but
No.
the challenge was to sort of come off like I'm telling the story about the person, and I'm not going to judge. My job wasn't to judge their material, and I did always remind myself, like, my job is not to, say this is a great song, or this is a great movie, or this is a great TV show, or you're great. In fact, I would never say to someone, you're great. Those are the words I don't use those words, you're great.
Yes.
Sometimes
it's also very superficial in many ways.
Exactly. And when I hear interviewers gushed like that, I think, it's easy to gush. Karen, it's easy to tell someone how great they are.
Yeah.
That's easy. What's harder? To dig around to find interesting questions they've never answered before.
Absolutely.
And, right? To find fresh material. So that's where I came from. That was every day I'd say, okay, I'm going to find fresh material on this person and come up with a fresh story, a fresh angle. And I'm not going to worry about whether I like their stuff or not. Some people I would love their stuff. And so that was extra fun. Yeah. And then I covered current events. And I was lucky because I got to do co-host a current affairs show where we would actually debate issues. And that's unusual because normally in a news environment, you're impartial, yes, and you're objective. You don't, voice your opinion.
You're Switzerland. You're neutral.
You're neutral, which I'm not very good at, to be honest with you. I'm not a very neutral person.
No.
I'm not neutral. So I was able to take it and have my opinion and debate, issues. So yes. I haven't had to be too neutral.
Okay. So what would you say some of your biggest career highlights have been? Or have there been multiple?
It's like I love what I've done. So yes. In terms of highlights, I would say there's been a couple of really great interviews that people that I enjoyed speaking with. David Bowie was someone who I flew to New York from Toronto to do the interview, and I just remember how really authentic he was, how very down to earth. When I talked to him, he's such a pro, and the people that are pros, the most successful artists, are the very best at interviewing.
Absolutely. And very grounded, because in some of the interviews I've seen with him, he seems to be very soulful and thoughtful in his answers. I don't know.
100%. And I felt like I have interviewed enough people where I could tell they were giving me the answers they had memorized. Yes. In fact, I interviewed a country artist once. And before I did the interview, I read through some research. Obviously read through some research. And I read this print interview, and then I sat down to do a television interview. And he literally answered he gave me the exact same answers that he had said, quote, word for word, that I had read in the newspaper interview. So I might not have asked the exact same question. However, I don't know if it was bad media training, he would deliver this response that was word for word.
Wow.
What he had said. And the disappointing thing is that I was disappointed, and I could tell as the interview was going on, I thought, this is, and I thought, okay, maybe he's insecure and he can't think on his feet. Yeah. Or, he feels safer having these canned answers. It was so disappointing though, and anybody who would be a fan of his is going to recognize, oh, I've heard this all before. Yeah. So I love I don't think this is the question you asked. However, it's coming out anyway. I just think I like that would, in terms of memorable, it's the people that delivered that could just be themselves. You know, I've done all sorts of things. You know, I've covered circuses, you know, where I would be inside. I went inside one of those big cages, round cages where the motorcycles go do 360
Oh, yes.
inside, right? And I've been in the middle. I stood in the
Wow.
middle of that. I've been in, you know, I covered a Star Wars movie opening in a helicopter so we could shoot the big crowds. I've, you know, stood on stage and co-hosted a New Year's Eve special in downtown Toronto. I've done a lot. Feel it's been a lot of fun. I've ridden an elephant. You know,
Oh, amazing. How was
yeah,
that experience?
scary. Elephants
Yes.
are really, really high up.
Yes. People don't realize until we like standing next to or near or you close.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it was very high up, and you just sort of hang on to the hair on their backs.
Yes. And they've got I don't know, I mean, just feeling the texture of the hair is also very unusual.
You sound like you've ridden an elephant too, Karen.
Well, no, I used to manage and help a game farm in South Africa when my parents ran a 5-star game lodge, so we used to go on a lot of safaris. So,
Oh,
yeah, so that's why and I know that at one point they had to shoot one of the elephants
oh,
for whatever reason, and it wasn't hunting, it was just something was wrong with the elephant. So they actually let us go up and touch the elephant, and it's kind of weird with the way the hair is.
yeah. It's like straw or rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Well, that's a happy yet sad story you just told.
So,
Yeah.
so when was your big break? As many often don't see what it takes to get where you are today. So can you share with us when your big break happened, or were there a number of moments that led to bigger opportunities?
Well, it hasn't been a straight line, you know, that's for sure. And, you know, I worked in the concert business out of college for about 10 years. And that was an amazing experience because I was really drawn to entertainment. So I knew that was the field I wanted to be in. And so I had a fantastic, you know, career in sort of the business side of putting on concerts and tours, and we represented the Rolling Stones and U2 and Madonna, and you know, it was just so much fun for someone in their 20s. So, you know, I'd say thanks to the person who hired me at that company. And then I would say thanks to the producer who let me intern at CTV when I said, I'll do anything. I will do anything. And he said, okay, you could be an intern. And I went from, you know, collecting research for the other talent to be given a chance to go do an interview. My very first interview was with Def Leppard. And
oh, wow. And
yeah,
what was that like?
it was great. It was fantastic. I got along with the rockers quite well. I don't know
Oh,
why,
brilliant.
but rockers and heavy metal bands really liked me. It was so strange. I have no idea why, but it always went very well. And and I was so nervous. I mean, I was so nervous. It was like I didn't know if I was going to be able to get out of my house. I was so nervous because I had put all this pressure on myself that this was the interview, that this was my big chance. And in some ways it was. I don't know if it was going to be my only chance. However, it was going to be a big chance. And I called my friend who lived in LA and I said, I'm going to do this interview with Def Leppard. And she had been in the music industry for a long time. I'm like, you got to give me some information on them. I want to surprise them. I want to do one of those, oh yes, I know something about you that you're going to, you know, be surprised to hear. And I honestly forget what she told me at the time, but she gave me like this great tip. And I went in there and I did this interview and the band was amazing. And I put this great piece together on Def Leppard and it was wonderful. And that was really, and then I was hired. I went from being the intern to being hired like a week later. So it was great. And you know, when it comes to broadcast, it's usually one producer.
Yeah.
I think this I think this happens in the entertainment business in many ways. If there's one person who believes in you, that's all it takes. It's, you know, often producers they sort of groom people, I'd say, and that can work for or against you. I will say. It
Absolutely.
can
Because you
definitely
can
work.
also be kind of typecast in one specific thing and then not be able to shift within that, within that
Exactly.
genre. Yeah.
You're right. Exactly. Yeah, very true.
So you often found yourself on stage acting as an MC and moderator. Was this something that happened by default, or was this an organic process for you?
Uh, well, I think I'd say it was organic. As a
Okay.
public figure, I started to, get requests to host charitable events, and I was terrified of standing on stage and speaking in front of a crowd. I had no problem speaking to nobody in a camera lens, right? Just talking to a camera lens, and
Yes.
which is really not in front of anybody, even though
No.
it's broadcast to everybody. I had no problem doing that. Staying on a stage, forget it. And I said to myself, because they're really two different things, like two
Yes.
totally different things. And I said to myself, you know what? If a charity or a not-for-profit is asking you to help them for their event, you need to say yes. Like you just have to say
Absolutely.
yes.
Yeah.
So I said yes, and over the years got over my fear, and then started to feel really comfortable, and then started to have fun with it, and then realized, oh, this is a great experience, and sort of added it to my repertoire of services.
Amazing. So you have a passion for public speaking, and you have your own coaching business, working with businesses and future stars. So can you share with us why it is so important to you, and are you selective about who you work with? And can you share with us a little more about your process and how this works?
Yeah, so I am a firm believer that everybody, if I can, become comfortable and have fun on a stage, everybody's capable of it. It's really about getting over the fear of it. So I am able to help people shift their mindset to thinking slightly differently if there's a story they want to tell. And so many of us have stories we want to tell. And people find themselves sometimes sort of forced to be speaking in front of a group. It could be in a boardroom. It could be on a stage. It could be professionally. It could be personally. And I think, why suffer? Like, why suffer when you don't have to? So for anybody who really wants to be able to tell their story and feel comfortable and have a good time, I love working with people to help them in their own individual way and using their own personalities, be able to get to that level and feel good about it, and maybe even make a living doing it.
Oh, wonderful. That's amazing. So that leads me to social media, which has obviously changed and impacted our lives both in a positive and negative way. So how has this impacted and changed your life? And how do you believe we can use these platforms more responsibly?
Well, I think ultimately social media is a broadcast platform.
Yes.
So the positive is that it's allowed people to be able to market themselves, market their product, market their services without having to spend a lot of money on traditional media. So that's a big plus. It helps people reach more people, because there's no borders, and they don't have to be somewhere to be seen necessarily. So I think that's fantastic. I think, it's hard because I think a lot of people aren't comfortable, again, in front of a camera.
Yes.
And so it's great for those that are extroverts, love being on camera, I think there's people who love it, people hate it. And if it's a necessity, what's the word? It's not an evil necessity, but it's something that we have to get used to and have to get our heads around because it's not going away. So if you can't beat them, join them.
Yes. So that leads me to the last two questions. So what are the 3 key pieces of advice you would give to other entrepreneurs looking to pursue a career in media and in media and the public speaking arena? And what legacy would you like to leave?
3 pieces of advice. I think the most important thing is that you don't want to listen too much to what other people's advice is unless they're giving you, good professional advice. The kind of advice I'm talking about is where people say, oh, that's very competitive. Do you know how many people are trying to get that job? Or I don't think you've got what it takes. So those comments that can easily influence someone and I think drive them or push them away from a dream or a passion. If you believe in yourself and what you want, just stay laser focused. Stay laser focused on it.
Yeah.
I think that there's no such thing as working too hard to get something.
Yeah.
So don't expect anything to fall in your lap. I was an intern well after the age of what I should be doing as an intern. Like I had 2 careers,
Yes.
So I had one career, I spent 10 years doing it. And then I said, I want to change. I want to do something different. I want to be in broadcast. And I was not afraid to say, I will volunteer because I'm going to impress you and then I'll get a job. And it doesn't always work out that way. However, don't be afraid to say, I'm here, I can do something for you. Put me to work.
Yes.
And I think the final thing is that we have multiple careers in us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's no point getting too attached to, but when I was younger, all I wanted to do was be in television. So I've got to do that for the rest of my life, right? No, absolutely not. Hey, we evolve as people. We mature. We realize there's, possibilities we didn't know existed maybe when we were younger. And I think we can morph into anything we want to be. Multiple careers. Those are my 3.
And what legacy would you like to leave?
I don't really think about legacy a whole lot.
Yes.
Probably, it's just not really something I give too much thought to, and I don't know why. So if I had to ask,
still in progress.
I think maybe that's what it is. I would honestly just hope people remember me as a generous person who supported other people as well. I get very excited in supporting people reach their goals. And I'm a cheerleader at heart. That's what I call myself. I'm just a cheerleader. So I want you to believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. I think we're all capable of so much.
Absolutely. So if people want to get in contact with you, what is the best platforms to connect on?
Well, you can go to my website. It's probably the easiest thing to do is go to lizwest.ca and you can contact me. You can see what I've done. It'll take you to my speaking website. All my social media is there. So lizwest.ca.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully we can have you back in the future to see where and what you've been doing.
My pleasure, Karen. It's been great speaking with you.